Do you ever lay in bed totally exhausted, but your brain's like, now's a good time to overthink everything I've ever done? Today, I'm testing a strange little trick called cognitive shuffling, where you picture random things like a turtle, a lamp, or a snow cone to stop your brain from spiraling. It sounds silly, but could it actually work? I also tried 4 other sleep hacks, from special breathing to a simple journaling trick, and I even talked to a neuroscientist to break down the science behind it all. If you have ever begged your brain to just shut up at night, this one's for you. If you've ever struggled with sleep, you know how frustrating it can be. You're tired, but your thoughts just won't shut up. You're replaying an awkward moment from 5 years ago, or worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet. That's because sleep isn't as simple as just closing your eyes and drifting off. You've probably heard things like do breathing exercises, meditation, or use white noise, but there's one method that's been popping up online lately that's a little different. It's called cognitive shuffling, and the idea is by thinking of random, unrelated images and things like turtle, lamp, snow cone, you can confuse your brain just enough to fall asleep. And it sounds kind of silly, but is there actual science behind it, or is this just another TikTok trick? Cognitive shuffling works like this. Instead of focusing on one thought, like your stress about tomorrow's meeting, you shuffle through random, unrelated images in your mind. Think apple, skateboard, lamp, river. By doing this, you keep your brain occupied just enough to prevent it from spiraling into anxious thoughts. It's supposed to mimic the way our thoughts drift right before we fall asleep. But here's the thing, we don't actually know if this works. Of all the people talking about this online, none have cited real research proving that it helps with sleep. Still, I was curious enough to give it a shot myself. And more on that in just a bit. But first, let's dig into the science to see if there's actually a reason why cognitive shuffling could work. The term cognitive shuffling was first popularized by sleep researcher Dr. Luc Boudoin, who proposed that the brain naturally drifts through random images as we fall asleep. And I have to be honest, I've paid more attention and my brain does do this. But his idea was that if we could replicate this process on purpose, it might help people fall asleep faster. Since then, the idea has spread online, with apps and techniques popping up that claim to help you shuffle your thoughts and trick your brain into sleep mode. But despite its popularity, there's no published research confirming that it actually works. So, if there's no scientific proof, then why do people find it helpful? And that's where neuroscience comes in. To figure this out, I spoke with my friend and neuroscientist, Dr. Ben Ryan. He studies how the brain works and was able to shed some light on why cognitive shuffling might help with sleep. And he also just wrote a book. It's called Why Brains Need Friends, and it's all about the neuroscience of social connection. Get your copy today by clicking the link in the description. Now back to our interview. First, I asked him if there was any new research out there that maybe I'd missed.
So I did a quick PubMed search to look for cognitive shuffling and whether it has effects on sleep. And I found 0 search results. And so that means either it's never been studied before, or it may have been studied but under a different name. So in research settings, it may not be called cognitive shuffling. It may be called something else, and maybe people on social media started calling it cognitive shuffling. But as far as the sort of premise of whether it would work or not, I purposely asked you not to tell me anything about it. I didn't research anything until just now. And it actually does kind of make sense. And you know what it really makes me think of is counting sheep. It's like you're taking control of your thoughts and you're directing them in this kind of like purposeless way that allows you to disconnect just enough for sleep onset to sort of take you away.
Since there isn't any research out there, I then asked Ben if he thought it could work and why.
Anecdotally, from my personal experience, when I'm trying to fall asleep, usually what keeps me up is either a rush of anxiety where I'm like, oh, did I turn off the stove? Or it's like, like a rush of excitement where I'm like, I should change that chapter of my book to say this. That's so much better. I need to stop. I need to get up and write this down right now, or else I'm going to forget it. And so I think by kind of preventing those things from happening and just taking control of your thoughts, if you're tired and it's nighttime and it's dark and you're laying in bed, sleep will find you usually. So it's interesting. It makes sense to me. I'd be curious to see. Now I really want to see like a research trial done on whether this would work in like a large controlled sample. Yeah, it's funny. There's sort of a common theme in everything we're saying is that like the brain just kind of automatically shuffles between thoughts. It's like, this is a massive question in neuroscience. Like, what is consciousness? You could argue that consciousness can be defined as exactly that, like that, just the fact that your brain is flicked in the on position and just doing things and jumping between ideas, and you really don't have much control over what those ideas are. Like the classic, if you try to like, don't think about a purple elephant, like you've now thought of you've now thought of a purple elephant. And so it's just funny how you have really very little control over that. But if you take control over that, then the brain's going to continue shuffling regardless and jumping between ideas. If you direct those ideas, then you're preventing it from sort of going off the rails into an area where you don't want it to go.
So it sounds like this conscious focus on things that aren't related could help us sleep. If our brain does this automatically, then we purposely ensure the things it's thinking of aren't stressful or anxiety provoking. We could help ourselves fall asleep more quickly. Like cognitive shuffling is kind of a healthy distraction that we can offer ourselves when we're trying to fall asleep, so that we don't stay up and stress about the things we did in the past or that we have to do tomorrow. So after talking to Ben, I decided to give cognitive shuffling a real shot. As you know, I sometimes lay awake replaying my most embarrassing mistakes and or worrying about the future, and I figured at the very least it was worth a shot. I tried it for a few nights. Instead of spiraling into my usual bedtime overthinking and stressing, I started picturing random objects. A purple balloon, a wooden spoon, a turtle on a skateboard. And to my surprise, it actually seemed to help. I wasn't sure if it was a placebo effect, but my mind felt calmer and I did fall asleep faster. And I have to be honest, it didn't work every single night. But when it did, it felt effortless, like my brain just let go instead of fighting the sleep. So while there's no hard evidence that cognitive shuffling works, I can at least say from my own experience that it did help. And it was easy and free to try, which I love. Thank you to the sponsor of today's video, X-Tiles. If Notion ever felt like too much, too many blocks, too many clicks, X-Tiles might just be your brain's new best friend. Think of it as your favorite bullet journal, but smarter, fully digital, visual, and incredibly simple to use. It's flexible enough to organize everything exactly the way your brain works. And the ease of using ready-made templates makes managing every area of your life effortless. You can start organizing your life and ideas in a second. Just add your notes, checklists, and resources on the page and adjust everything to your style. Also, it has a bunch of templates for family, habits, trip planning, coaching, and event work projects. The visual planner at its core is ADHD friendly, dopamine boosting, and specifically designed for how we naturally think. Yearly goals, monthly priorities, weekly tasks, and daily notes all layered and interconnected. Whether you're running a YouTube channel, managing a side hustle, or simply organizing everyday tasks, X-Tiles keeps everything connected, clear, and clutter-free. Try X-Tiles today. Finally, productivity that makes sense for your brain. This next method is super simple, totally free again, and something that you can try right now. Here's how it works. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath at the top for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat this cycle 4 to 8 times. The goal is to focus your attention on the breath and allow your body to naturally relax. So why do they think this works? This method taps directly into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of your brain responsible for calming you down. When you're stressed or anxious, your sympathetic nervous system is firing, keeping you alert and tense. But slow, controlled breathing signals to your brain and body that you're safe. Specifically, that long exhale, the 8 seconds out, helps stimulate the vagus nerve, which reduces your heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and promotes a sense of calm. It's basically like pressing a manual override on your body's stress response. And this technique is used by sleep experts, yoga practitioners, and even military personnel to relax under pressure. So if you're lying in bed and you can't shut off your mind, try the 4-7-8 method. It's a great way to manually dial down anxiety and hopefully ease us into sleep. This one is all about working with your body to calm your mind. And here's how you do it. You start at your toes and you work your way up. You tense each muscle group, so like your toes, maybe your feet. You tense each muscle group for about 5 seconds. Then we release it and relax for 10 to 15 seconds before moving on and up to the next group. Focus on the contrast between tension and relaxation. You can do this lying in bed, eyes closed, with a calm voice guiding you. There's guided things you can find online for this, or even just in your head. Now, why do they think this helps? Well, when we're anxious or overstimulated, our bodies often carry residual tension, like tight shoulders, clenched jaws, or a stiff back. Progressive muscle relaxation helps us release that built-up tension. It also triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting a relaxation response and reducing our cortisol levels. Plus, the mental focus on your body gives your brain something non-anxious to do, breaking the cycle of overthinking. Sleep and body temperature are deeply connected. A cooler body signals your brain that it's time to rest. And here's what you can try. Set your room temperature between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 15 to 19 Celsius for those of you in Europe or in Canada, which sleep experts recommend as optimal. Take a warm shower or bath about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the warm water draws blood to your skin. You know, when you're kind of like red. And when you get out, your core body temperature drops, which signals your body that it's time to sleep. That's kind of why usually when we have babies, we give them a bath and then put them to bed. So what's the science? As you fall asleep, your core temperature naturally drops. This cooling process helps initiate and sustain deep sleep. A cooler room helps mimic and support that natural dip. Plus, melatonin, the sleep hormone, is more easily released when your body is cooler. So tweaking your temperature is a simple way to align with your body's natural rhythm. And as someone who's 41 and a lot of friends are going to perimenopause or menopause, this explains why we wake up, right? We get overheated, we wake up sweating. And so making sure that your sheets and your pajamas are natural fibers that are breathable so you can cool down more quickly and fall asleep. Ever get into bed and suddenly your brain wants to unpack your entire life? That's where the brain dump comes in. Here's how to do it. Grab a notebook or your notes app in your phone. Write down whatever's on your mind. Unfinished tasks, random worries, things you want to remember tomorrow. No structure needed, no grammar police. Just empty the mental inbox. Now, why do they think this works? Well, when you externalize your thoughts, your brain doesn't feel the need to keep looping through them. You're signaling that those concerns are recorded and can be dealt with later. Neuroscience shows that expressive writing helps reduce activity in the amygdala, your brain's emotional center, right? The fire alarm. And this leads to a sense of calm and control. It's like giving your brain permission to rest. Now, why does it even matter if we get good sleep? Why is it so crucial beyond just avoiding feeling tired and grumpy the next day? Well, sleep isn't just a passive rest state. It's actually one of the most active and essential processes our brains undertake. When we sleep, especially during deep sleep and like our REM sleep cycles, our brains are incredibly busy. But what actually happens when we sleep? Again, I asked the expert, Dr. Ben Ryan, and here's what he had to say.
What's actually happening when you're sleeping is essentially there's a lot of reorganization happening in the brain and sort of clearance. One, we have the glymphatic system that sort of washes and cleanses the brain overnight and helps keep it nice and clean in there, prevent things from building up that we don't want to build up. And then maybe more importantly, I would say, we have a lot of synaptic reorganization. And so all there's 86 billion neurons in the brain. They all have maybe thousands of synapses. So there are almost an uncountable number of synapses in the brain. And this is where brain cells interact with each other. And when we learn things, as we age and develop, when we experience things, our synapses change. This is the plasticity that we talk about in the brain. And a lot of the process of learning and memory consolidation happens during sleep. So if you're sleep deprived, or animals are sleep deprived, there's many studies showing this, you may struggle to form memories. And so there's all these interesting studies in mice where, they teach them a maze and then they let them sleep, or they don't let them sleep. And the ones who slept are better at the maze when they wake up than the ones who didn't sleep, things like that. And so what's thought to be happening is there's this sort of just synaptic remodeling and restructuring. It's almost like when, at nighttime, all the roads go under construction, right? Because there's no one out there. It's kind of like that, right? Our brain's under construction. The things you learned about that day or the experiences you had are being consolidated into long forms or long-term memories so that you can hold on to those. And dreaming might be a part of that. But what's amazing to me is, clearly there's a role for memory, but also without sleep, you will die. If you don't sleep for, I don't know, I think it's 7 or 8 days or something like that. After long enough staying awake, the body will shut down. And so that shows how important sleep is for a bunch of functions. And on a less extreme level, if you're slightly sleep deprived, you get a few hours less sleep for even one night, you will have, difficulty with emotion regulation, and you'll struggle in many ways. You'll feel depressed. You will just your entire well-being will crumble. And so, the importance of sleep cannot be overstated. And it's something that happens. It's something that's really making a difference in brain-wide function, I would say, honestly.
So sleep is vitally important. Like Ben said, without it, we die. Which is crazy, but just goes to show you how much we need sleep. To recap, here are a few of the things Ben mentioned, and some that I threw in, that happen when we sleep. First, our brains consolidate memories, basically deciding what information from the day should stick around for the long haul. Ever wonder why a good night's sleep helps you remember things better? That's your brain hard at work. Sleep also allows our brain to clear out toxins. Throughout the day, our brains produce metabolic waste. These are byproducts from all that thinking and processing that it's doing. During sleep, something called the glymphatic system kicks into gear, washing away this waste. Imagine it's like taking out your brain's nightly trash. Plus, sleep helps regulate our emotions. When we're sleep deprived, our emotional centers become hyper-reactive, meaning we're more likely to feel anxious, irritable, or even depressed. Good sleep resets our emotional balance, helping us stay calmer and more resilient to stress. Understanding how crucial sleep is makes techniques like cognitive shuffling even more valuable, especially if you're someone like me who struggles with bedtime anxiety. If a simple trick can help ease you into a restful sleep, your brain and your whole body will thank you. Now that we understand how important sleep is, let's dive into some practical strategies and tips to help you sleep better and wake up refreshed. I asked Ben to come back and break down what the latest neuroscience says about better sleep. And here's what we uncovered. What are some basic sleep hygiene things that we know are tested, are proven, there is research to support it? What are some things people can do today?
Okay, first off, these two are going to seem really obvious. You want your room to be dark and you want your room to be silent. For example, when I was growing up, I used to sleep with the TV on in my bedroom.
My husband's the same. That was what he would do.
Okay, so that was honestly because I was a kid and I was scared of the dark and I was, whatever. Same. I needed the light on. Mm-hmm. But looking back, I'm like, wow, I must have really messed up my sleep for all those years because, the brain is designed to sleep in a dark environment. The signals about light coming through your eyes tell your brain about what time of day it is. There are systems in the brain. So when light comes through the eyes, there's something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, part of the brain that detects how much light is coming in the eyes. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus determines the production and secretion of melatonin. So your
Oh.
melatonin production in your body is directly linked to how much light your body is detecting coming through your eyes. So if you're like me and you sleep with the TV on, you have light coming through your eyes all night long. And so your body's natural melatonin production, I can almost guarantee, will be lower than it should be. And because of that, you will probably suffer impaired sleep quality. We do a lot of this. We have screens right in our face. We watch TV before bed. We turn off the TV, we get in bed, and we hold a screen inches from our face, right? And so what we're doing is we're shining light directly into our eyes moments before we're about to close those eyes and try to sleep. And so that's telling our brain, hey, especially if you have the brightness all the way up, it's probably daytime. And so that where your melatonin levels should be rising, as they gradually do as we approach bedtime, you're preventing that by holding a phone in front of your eyes. So not only should you sleep in a dark room, but you should ideally prevent your light exposure before bed. Like the ideal sleep habits, you turn off the TV, you turn off your ceiling lights, your house is dark, maybe you have some candles burning a few hours before bed, maybe like an hour or two before bed. Instead of watching TV, maybe you read a book. It's hard to do something like that in modern day, but if you were to do that, I could almost guarantee your sleep quality would improve. On the quiet note, I want to add something. A lot of people sleep with white noise. Some people believe that sleeping with white noise will improve your sleep quality. I'm also guilty of this. I used to sleep with white noise. Science shows that if you are in a perfectly quiet environment and you add white noise, it will not make any difference to your sleep quality and as far as improving it. If anything, it might be bad because you're adding this additional sound that could be distracting, who knows. But basically white noise doesn't do anything for you if you're already in a quiet environment. But where white noise can be helpful is if you sleep in an environment where there are sort of spontaneous noises, like let's say you're sleeping by a road and cars drive by, or a train passes, or airplanes, or your neighbor shouts, or the dog barks, anything like that. If you're in an environment where there are frequent kind of bursts of noise, those bursts of noise can wake you up, and you don't want your sleep to be fragmented. So having white noise can kind of blur out those bursts of noise and prevent them from waking you. So that's, and research does show that, like, for example, for patients that are in hospitals and there's a lot of noise, sleeping with white noise, a lot of ambient noise, sleeping with white noise does improve sleep quality in those people. Establishing a routine. So going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. This is like massive. And especially for those who suffer from insomnia, I think, that could be really helpful, because what we're really talking about when we say establishing a routine is, I mentioned earlier that your melatonin levels gradually rise, right, as we approach bedtime. You've heard of the term circadian rhythm. That's, this is a rhythm of your melatonin levels rising and then falling, and, other hormone levels changing. But if we get into the routine of, let's say we go to bed every single night at 10:30 p.m., your body will say, okay, this is when I go to sleep. So approaching 10:30 p.m., I'm going to start producing and releasing melatonin. And so what happens is, over time, your body gets so entrenched in that you're kind of like optimizing your melatonin production so that you get sleepy at that time. So if you go to sleep at 10:30, then the next night you go to sleep at 2, and then the next night you go to bed at 6 p.m. because you're working all different hours, your body just doesn't know when to produce melatonin. And those natural signals that your body releases and follows in order to achieve high quality sleep are disrupted. And so by remaining on schedule, you're really doing the best thing for yourself, and you might find it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep as well. Avoiding caffeine late in the day. Everyone kind of seems to have like I'm not talking biologically or scientifically. I mean more personally, like everyone has like a cutoff where they're like, I can't have coffee after X PM, or AM, whatever it is. For me, it's like 2 PM. Find that zone and, stick to it, because obviously caffeine or other stimulants can keep you awake. Also exercise. So generally any day that you exercise, you're liable to sleep better that night.
So to sum it up, if you want better sleep, try keeping things quiet and dark. Stick to a regular schedule. Create a calming wind-down routine. Cut screen time before bed. I know, I'm just as guilty. And watch out for late-day caffeine. Simple changes equal big impact. Thanks again to Dr. Ben Ryan for breaking it down so clearly. Since we know that sleep is vital to our overall health, how much sleep do people actually need? Okay, final question. So you said you get 8 hours of sleep a night. I need 9. 9 is my sweet spot. How many hours of sleep do people need, or do we know?
the average is generally between 7 to 9 hours that is recommended. And they say that everyone's different, that some people, there are amazing superhero people out there who can get 4 hours of sleep and feel just as good as anyone else who needs 8 hours of sleep. Personally, this may be kind of maybe a controversial opinion, I don't know, but I kind of don't buy that. I sort of feel that like everyone has a different tolerance for fatigue, and if someone can get 4 hours of sleep and feel okay, like that doesn't mean that they don't need 8 hours of sleep. I still think that they would benefit from 8 hours of sleep. You don't want to go too far over, I think. If you're getting 11 hours of sleep every night, I mean, that's a lot, and that's advice that I don't give often, is like, oh, maybe you should taper it back. I'm not saying that, but I guess maybe in that case, getting excessive sleep could be a sign of some other thing happening.
Yeah, depression comes to mind. I also think that for me, when I oversleep, when I like on the weekend, if I'm not sick, if there's not like an organic reason, like I haven't traveled, I'm not sick, like if I'm getting that much sleep, I find that I don't really wake up that day. Like I'm a little groggy. Yep. Yeah, it ends up not really benefiting me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I mean, I rarely get those experiences where I sleep like 12 hours and I wake up like, wow, that was awesome.
I know,
and then I'm like,
yeah.
You think you're going to feel amazing that day and you feel horrible.
Totally.
But, I mean, if you're getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep, there's nothing that needs to be done. I think your sleep is great. If you're getting anywhere between like 5 and 7, I strongly recommend bumping it up as little or as much as you can, whether that's, you set your alarm clock for 30 minutes later, or you go to bed 30 minutes earlier every night for a week or two, and you just see if you feel different. I can almost guarantee you will feel a lot different. You'll feel, you're more in control of your emotions. You may feel more sharp. You may have more like physical energy, less fatigue during the day. There are all sorts of benefits. And so, stepping things up as much as you can is always a good idea.
So are these sleep hacks worth trying? Honestly, yes. While some are backed by more research than others, all of them are safe, simple, and easy to experiment with. And when your brain won't shut off, having a few tools in your back pocket can make a huge difference. To recap, try cognitive shuffling if your thoughts are spiraling. Use the 4-7-8 breathing to instantly calm your nervous system. Do a quick body scan with progressive muscle relaxation. Drop your core temp with a warm shower or a cool room. And brain dump before bed to clear mental clutter. The best part? You don't have to do all of them. Even one could help. Have you tried any of these before, or are you planning to test one out tonight? Drop a comment and let me know what worked or what totally didn't work. And if you like nerdy science-backed deep dives like this one, be sure to subscribe. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you in the next video.